To our team of able Nightline correspondents. In London, John Donvan is keeping an eye on our overseas bureaus. Good morning, John. And here in Washington,
Sam.
We have Dave Marish, Michelle McQueen, and Chris Bury. Chris, let's start with you. What do you got? What do you know?
Sam, it was so dull at the Y2K Center here in Washington that some staffers were popping champagne and some journalists were watching a movie, Apocalypse Now. And that film is as close as anyone got to some of those doomsday predictions. In fact, the headline today is that the terrorists stayed home. And so did most of those run-of-the-mill mischief makers you might expect on any New Year's Eve, any Friday night, let alone the millennium. By now, you have probably seen that television commercial poking fun at the fear-mongering of recent weeks. Here, everything that can possibly go wrong does. That was the nightmare scenario, Millennium Mayhem. The pleasant reality this morning is a remarkably serene New Year's Day. No black helicopters. Here in Washington and in New York City, the morning after the big parties, the all but deserted streets suggest most people are safe and snug at home. Perhaps the most striking Millennium story of all is what did not happen last night. In New York City, for instance, 2 million people partied in Times Square, but police reported only 14 arrests, mostly for public drunkenness. Of course, those 8,000 police officers on duty may have been quite a deterrent. In New Orleans, police tell us we've had worse Mardi Gras. In Boston, 1 million revelers, 2 arrests. In other cities, a remarkably similar story, a surplus of goodwill and a deficit of crime in celebration after celebration. There were exceptions. In Santa Rosa, California, police arrested 2 men with guns and ammunition in a parking garage overlooking the city's festivities. In Anchorage, Alaska, a bomb scare forced the evacuation of 2,000 people at the Performing Arts Center. In Bend, Oregon, some vandals toppled a power line, but the FBI insists they were local troublemakers, not terrorists. In suburban Chicago, vandals set off a small bomb, causing a brief power outage. But for most American cities and towns, whether it was good luck or good law enforcement or some combination, a giant sigh of relief this morning. Sam?
Thanks, Chris. Don't go away. We'll come back to you. Well, all right, what about telecommunications? Did the telephone work after midnight? Did the television work after midnight? Perish the thought. Did the pager work? No such luck that it might not. Well, Michelle McQueen's been looking at all of that. So what's the answer, Michelle?
Good morning, Sam. Well, people always want to know how did things play in Peoria, and we can actually tell you. According to the Journal Star, Peorians stay sane through Y2K scare. And around the world, the headlines report much the same thing. This morning's Washington Post, Y2K bug didn't bite. In the Bangkok Post, mouse that didn't roar.
Michelle was telecom.
The South China Post, Y2K's first bite is mosquito-sized. And USA Today, Y2K bugs exterminated. Now, given that U.S. companies spent $100 billion to get ready, Sam, this outcome was to be expected. And the financial companies in particular started early and spent a lot to get ready. But we've also been checking behind the headlines. We found that a consortium of the world's central banks have been holding conference calls throughout the night every 3 or 4 hours, and they find that there were no problems in the financial system anywhere in the world. And if you want to go ahead and get your money out of the ATMs, please feel free to go ahead. We've also been checking with every major telephone company in the United States. They report that there were no problems anywhere. They report that the volume was high, but not as high as Mother's Day. In fact, many people probably did like my relatives did, which was to offer their New Year's greetings early. And if you're a computer user, we find that you can go ahead and log on. There were no reported disruptions. 2 virus tracking firms that we've been working with report that there was some virus detected activity overnight, but this was amateurish. It was mainly a nuisance. And there was just no difficulty whatsoever. In fact, Sam, you probably broke the biggest financial story of the night when you reported that some of the slot machines in Delaware weren't taking bets, but that problem has also been fixed.
Michelle, what do you think about that? I mean, the biggest story of the night is that if you're at the racetracks in Delaware and you're trying to play the slots, you can't do it. And you're outraged by that. And the people who are mostly outraged are the owners of the slot machines, who I understand are going to sue.
Well, I think that it shows that people spent a lot of money to do their job, and they did their job. But we also have to remind you that there's very little commercial activity over the weekend. The real tests don't come until Monday.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. You don't go away either. Dave Marish, What about transportation around the world, but particularly in this country? I mean, we Americans are particularly interested in what's happened here in America.
Well, Sam, with all the fears that we have, perhaps we ought to file this story under Now They Tell Us. It turns out that the night of the millennial rollover was one of the best nights ever to travel. Even the people who set out to test the Y2K gremlins, the people who were looking for trouble, found their biggest problem was to find flights that hadn't been canceled for lack of consumer interest. Compared to last New Year's overnight, when 3,100 commercial flights crisscrossed the United States, the rollover hours to the year 2000 saw just 1,335 flights in the air, and many of them empty enough to provide lots of stretch-out room. FAA Administrator James Garvey had to scramble to find flights that had her aloft during all the crucial rollover hours. On a flight from Washington to Dallas, Garvey flew during the rollover of Greenwich Mean Time to Y2K, faxing a message to Transportation Secretary Rodney Slater and President Clinton that repeated the famous post-first flight telegram of the brothers Wilbur and Orville Wright, quote, "Success, stop. Inform press, stop." Then Garvey flew from Dallas to San Francisco, flying through the midnight hours of Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific time.
I am delighted and proud to say that it went very smoothly. There was a wonderfully smooth transition into the new millennium. So it was uneventful, which is exactly as we wanted it to be.
There was one aviation hiccup. Printers that serve 3 of the transoceanic air traffic control centers in New York City, Oakland, and Anchorage went on the fritz for a while. No flights were affected by this. On the rails, Amtrak stopped as scheduled at the rollover hours, but within minutes the trains were rolling again, and even when the wheels weren't rolling, the trains were rocking. Parties in progress, free drinks, free food, and yes, free train whistles, Sam, to sound your horn. You know, maybe we should start booking our flights ahead. Where do you want to go on Y3K, Sam?
I got to tell you, David, those free train whistles, I thought to myself, but if the train doesn't work getting back started, you can always use the whistle to call a cab, perhaps. Joining us now is Raymond Kelly, who is the U.S. Customs Commissioner here in Washington. He's in our Washington Bureau. He was a former police commissioner of New York City. Welcome to us this morning, Mr. Kelly.
Good morning, Sam.
And did you just get up, or are you...
I just got up, but I went to bed pretty late, I'll tell you that.
All right. Your department, as well as many other departments, have been worried about the possibility of terrorism. Thank goodness. Didn't happen. Why not?
Well, it was a glorious non-event, no question about it. Our border crossings were extraordinarily quiet. Our technology worked flawlessly. Law enforcement was on the job. We've been on alert. What happened with the arrest of Ahmad Rassam on December 14th with about 200 pounds of explosives changed the environment for law enforcement. We had general threats for years, quite frankly, about the millennium, but that arrest, the apprehension of Ahmad Rassam, changed our world, and we've had a heightened state of awareness. We're doing more interaction with people who come into the country. All law enforcement agencies, quite frankly, across the country are involved, and I think that's really what worked. Of course, we don't know what was planned, but as I say, law enforcement was on the case.
But you know, it's interesting, Commissioner, not only the possible terrorism that was planned and from abroad or domestic, but the normal incidents on New Year's Eve of rowdiness that might lead to violence. They didn't seem to be as prevalent as in past years.
Precisely. I can tell you that 14 arrests in New York City have to be a record low. We make that many arrests by 8 o'clock at night on December 31st. So you're right. Throughout the country, things were quieter. I think the American people were responsible. They didn't change significantly their habits, their plans, but they were certainly more aware of the issues that were out there as far as terrorism, as far as violence is concerned.
Well, Commissioner Kelly, we're delighted that everything went so smoothly. Thanks very much for coming in this morning. Go home, get a little bit more rest. Folks, when we come back, we're going to take a look at the world view from London and John Donvan. But first, this message.
This ABC News special, The Year 2000, Dawn of a New Era, will return in a moment.
I'm a junk food junkie. I mean, if it tasted good, I had to have it. I had the thighs to prove it.
If you want a delicious way to lose weight from Slim Fast, grab a meal on the go bar.
They were made for me. I've lost 15 pounds on the Slim Fast plan, and I loved every minute of it. The milk chocolate peanut is incredible. Just toss one in your bag. It's lunch.
22 vitamins and minerals, high in calcium, a well-balanced meal in 4 fantastic flavors.
It's got a big punch to it.
Slim Fast meal on the go bars every day. Balanced nutrition for a healthy life.
I am so glad I found these.
Now at Zales, you'll find exquisite diamond and platinum jewelry. Your choice, only $199. Here's to another 1,000 years of falling in love. At Zales stores or shop online at zales.com.
Don't get that, Frank.
Hello? Baxter!
New Meow Mix seafood middles. Mackerel and tuna flavors make it taste so good. Cats ask for it. By name.
Once in a great while, a motion picture comes along that breaks all the molds.
He is tearing this team apart.
Well, then you hold it together.
Critics say Any Given Sunday is a speeding freight train of non-stop action. Brilliantly directed, perfectly cast, superbly acted. Oliver Stone's most entertaining movie in years. Any Given Sunday, an Oliver Stone film, rated R, now playing.
What if you could treat wrinkles like an expert would? With RoC, the #1 anti-wrinkle cream in France, you can. Developed with dermatologists, RoC's pure and active form of vitamin A works deeper, inside skin surface. In a 12-week study, the appearance of fine lines was reduced by 86%, wrinkles by 42%. Something more superficial beauty treatments could never promise. RoC, we keep our promises.
ABC is the place to be for all the tradition and pageantry of college football on New Year's Day. At 1 Eastern, Florida takes on Michigan State, OurHouse.com Citrus Bowl. Then at 4:30 Eastern, Heisman winner Ron Dayne leads Wisconsin against Stanford in the Rose Bowl, presented by AT&T. At 8:30 Eastern, Alabama, Michigan in the FedEx Orange Bowl. It all kicks off at 11 a.m. with the Tournament of Roses parade.
The year 2000, dawn of a new era. Reporting from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
Welcome back to our first broadcast of this new year, this new millennium, and we are taking a look at what's happened in the last 24 hours or so, and let's not lose any more time. But let's go to London and John Donvan. John, you've been taking a look at the whole world. What do you see?
It's pretty much the same story you have there in the States. Here in Britain, the streets are literally littered with champagne bottles, and that's about as bad as it gets. Otherwise, we have a long list of no's. No massive power failures, no plane crashes, no telephone system breakdowns, and thankfully, no terrorism. And I'm not just talking about Britain. We've checked in with Australia, New Zealand, India, the Middle East, and it's basically the same story. Glitches, yes, there are a few here and there. In Japan, the most ominous report that the radiation monitoring equipment at 4 nuclear power plants froze up when the calendar flipped over, but the Japanese say that it's not a serious problem and the nuclear plants are still online. In France, the finance minister admitted that some of their computers in the banking system also froze up, but they also say that's not a problem. But otherwise, it's amazingly minor stuff. In Australia, if you get on a bus and try to buy a ticket, the ticket machine might not be working. In China, if you get into a taxi, the taxi meter might not be working. And in South Korea, several people received summonses from a courtroom, and it says, please show up in court on January 4th, 1900. And that's about as bad as it gets. Sam?
Well, if that's as bad as it gets, we can live with that. Thanks, John. Stay with us. People said, both publicly and privately, if there's going to be a problem in Europe, it's going to be Italy. Because the Italians didn't really get serious about this until this last year, and actually until September. Oh, you know, the Italians. Well, what about it? What did happen in Italy? We asked Mike Lee to take a look, and here is his report from Rome.
Rome was this morning basking in more than the warmth of a bright sunny day. There was a moral victory of sorts in the air. The Y2K disasters, which so many outside experts warned could strike here, failed to conquer this city, which existed long before they even started counting the first millennium. The computer-operated traffic lights are working. The trains are running without major incident. And so is the water and electricity. There have been no problems reported with telephone services, nor with computer-operated cash and ticket machines. Yet, in the run-up to the millennium, Italians had been bombarded with reports that their New Year's Day might be miserable, that there was a higher risk of Y2K software glitches here than most other places in Europe. The reason for those doomsday scenarios was that the Italian government started late in establishing its own Y2K control center. A serious, concerted effort to monitor and prevent problems did not begin until last February. So how has Italy apparently dodged the Y2K bullet without spending anywhere near the time and money that neighboring countries have? First of all, many public services here are not as heavily dependent upon computers. For instance, the water system is based upon the design of the old Roman aqueducts, which ensure a steady supply with the help of gravity. 93% of the electric power grid is run by one company, and it has spent 3 years ironing out potential bugs. All of which means that life in Italy this morning is normale, normal.
I think that Millennium Bug was only something to create atmosphere for the new millennium, something, a communication idea.
You think it was a hype?
Yes.
Besides, says this woman, if something breaks, we'll just repair it, like we always do. So Italians can, and probably will, brag that they kept their heads while the rest of the world worried and fretted over Y2K. They can face the millennium without being deprived of the technology which so many desperately need, their cappuccino machines.
Sam, in the town of Rimini, which is the birthplace of the film director Federico Fellini, they didn't have enough money to fix their computers, so they just set them all back to 1971. Why? No one seems to know. It's perhaps a Fellini plot. Sam.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you. The Italians. Later on, we're going to hear from Cokie Roberts, also from Rome. But the other big problem that we thought might occur was Mother Russia, the Russia Federation. And there were two big stories yesterday. Would Russia fall apart from Y2K? Well, Russia fell apart from the standpoint of political leadership in that Boris Yeltsin announced his resignation. Morton Dean is in Moscow this morning. And Mort, what do you have on both those stories?
Well, Sam, you're a smart guy and a worldly guy, and you probably know the Russian translation for the exclamation, wow. And all I can say is, wow, what a stunning end to the year here in Russia. It's the morning after in Moscow. Unlike most of the world, Russians are not only clearing the cobwebs of a long night to determine whether, yes, the advent of the millennium was fun, I had a good time, but for Russians, there was a different kind of New Year's hangover. Shake your head and try to remember there was a change as profound as the new year, new century, new millennium. This experimental democracy has a new president, an acting president, Vladimir Putin. Yeltsin, the unpredictable, had been unpredictable. Putin, former spy, former chief spy, prime minister for only 4.5 months, unknown quantity at home and abroad, became acting president. Who is this man? Many Russians and many in the U.S. will be saying this morning after. A new popular election, mandated in 3 months, is likely to be held on March 26th. Putin is the favorite, Yeltsin's hand-picked successor. Putin signed a document promising Yeltsin, in retirement, that he and his family would be protected by guards, driven by limousines, immune from any legal action. The Russian stock market soared. People in the street, those we talked with in Moscow, were uniformly pleased.
I'm very happy. This is timely and right. At last, power will be transferred to normal people.
Putin appeared presidential as he surveyed his new office. From Yeltsin, he accepted the suitcase containing the codes, symbolic of the presidency, and beyond, the codes that could be used to launch a nuclear attack. Putin met with Russia's Security Council and with other key groups of the central government. The acting president was acting like a president. In the wee hours of this morning, he flew to Chechnya to award knives to some of the Russian troops fighting there. Yeltsin left the Kremlin hours after his stunning surprise resignation speech to the nation. He said the new country would not return to its authoritarian ways.
Зачем?
Yeltsin said Russians will remain committed to their constitution, democracy, arms control, and market economics. Putin, in his presidential New Year's speech, suggested the road to democracy was his path too.
Принимая свое решение.
The astounding events overshadowed the fact that Russia, long feared as a Y2K crisis zone, had survived the new year with little or no trouble. In Russia's missile command post, midnight was 0 hour. No glitches, no snafus. The Atomic Ministries Crisis Center also reported no problems in Russia's nuclear plants. The Aeroflot Radar Center said all was well in the air.
Mike Lee, rather Borton Dean in Moscow. We'll return to this political story in Russia later in the morning. But after our local stations have their say, we'll be back with more of our First of the Millennium broadcasts. Stay with us.
We cover the news every day. We've seen a lot of stories.
It's a tough thing for a reporter to see.
You feel a mixture of fear, adrenaline, and the need to get it on the air.
And we met a lot of people.
Got to know the family, and you felt their pain.
These are the ones we'll never forget. The scene was chaos.
To first see them being rescued, it was a miracle.
I'm Christina Mendonça. Join us as the area's most experienced team of reporters share their most memorable moments with you. News 10 remembers, tonight at 10 p.m.
Who is this Father Joe? What is this Father Joe's Village? So it's food, it's shelter, it's rehabilitation. It's about people turning their own lives around. Cars are a major way in which we can make that happen because it provides us a new source of revenue. We'll take anything you got. New cars, old cars, used cars, boats, planes, moving, not moving. We'll tow it. When you call up and say, I've got a real clunker, don't worry about it. We'll use that to change your life. Just give us a call. We'll take care of it.
It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from in the Army National Guard. If you want to serve your country, if you can spend 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year of intense training to be ready when your community needs you, then call 1-800-GO-GUARD. Become part of a team that will help you achieve everything you can. Join the men and women of the Army National Guard. Call 1-800-GO-GUARD.
In the Army National Guard, you can.
ABC News special, The Year 2000, Dawn of a New Era, will return in a moment after this from your ABC station.
I now live with the image of my son lying on the floor.
Rid the world of me, execute me.
Charles Chitat-Ing, guilty of...
May the merit of the acts of loving kindness protect and guide us.
Thank you so much. Like, I'm really happy to be going home.
Oh, he lost it. He lost it. He lost it.
This ABC News special continues. The Year 2000, Dawn of a New Era. Reporting from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
Good morning. Welcome back to this first ABC News broadcast of the millennium. And if you've just joined us, you want to know, is the world safe? Yes. Is the nation safe? Yes. Is your community safe? I hope the answer is yes. We can't tell about every community, but the Y2K bug did not bite. Thank goodness terrorism did not bite. All seems well. And so let's take a look now at the other side of the millennium turnover, the festivities, from Kiribati in the Pacific to Samoa in the Pacific. As the world went round into the new millennium, people celebrated, and did they celebrate? And Aaron Brown has put together a package of what it looked like. Aaron?
In the majesty of it all, it was easy to see it as just one huge party, a giant global made-for-TV celebration. But it's been much more. Athens at midnight was a reminder that we celebrate a millennium, 1,000 years, more time than you can get your mind around. Many of the South Pacific islands that ushered in the new year hadn't been formed yet 1,000 years ago. The British didn't know the Chinese existed, and vice versa. 1,000 years is just too much. So for most, the celebration is for something smaller, 100 years, often less. In South Africa, Nelson Mandela and his countrymen could celebrate a century that ended in freedom. In Ireland and Northern Ireland, a shared celebration, an old song, and a new hope that the troubles, as they call them, may be over. And what a century it has been for the Russians, from the czars to the dictators to uncertainties. And what a century it has been for the United States, the American century. And together, the fireworks that lit the skies in every corner of the globe seem to celebrate a most simple truth. We made it. It wasn't always easy or even certain, but we did.
You know, that's what it looked like to Aaron, to me, to a lot of people. His line about the fireworks that celebrated and lit the skies to every corner of the globe, but not quite, if we stop to think about it. I want to take you now to Africa, to the little country of Djibouti, which is on the Gulf of Aden, and to our poet laureate at ABC News, James Wooten. Jim, not fireworks there where you are. And where are you, by the way?
I'm in a refugee camp filled with about 11,000 Somalian refugees called Ali Adi, which is about 100 miles from the capital city of Djibouti. And Djibouti has three borders with Somalia, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. So it's basically in the middle of one of Africa's troubled spots. It wasn't like Berlin, it wasn't like Moscow here last night. As a matter of fact, it was a night like anything else here, quiet. Most of the people were in bed by midnight. And as for Y2K, I think you can probably look around. James, if you want to make a short pan here, we're not going to see any Y2K problems in this place. It is devoid of computers. It is devoid of electricity, power, telephones, and like much of Africa, it has no relationship to any of the things we've been talking about over the last year, to e-commerce, to the internet, and to computers, which is one of the reasons why there were no Y2K snags here. We talked with embassies in Uganda, in Kenya, and Ethiopia today, and no American embassy in Africa reported any problems with Y2K. Africa is beyond calendars and clocks and beyond time and space and distance and dimension and beyond millennia. Africa just is.
Well, Jim, it just strikes me that while the rest of us wonder whether our pager message is going to come through, the people behind you are wondering whether they're going to have anything to eat tomorrow.
Oh, that's exactly right. I mean, here in a place like this and in many places across Africa where there are more than 500 refugee camps like this serving more than 6 million refugees, the day-to-day discipline is simply to survive, to get food, to get water, to have some shelter. It got very cold here last night, and frankly, I wasn't prepared for it. It gets very hot in the daytime. It's a very, very inhospitable place, as are most of the places where refugees are located in Africa. It's a very, very simple and a very, very difficult existence.
Well, Jim, very quickly, if you will, just look at...
I must say...
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I must say that it was a good place to be. It was very, very difficult to be here, the distance and et cetera. But it was a good place to be at the beginning of the millennium because people here do teach lessons in simplicity and what's needed, what's necessary, and what ain't.
Thanks, Jim Wooten. Thanks. A look at reality in this world, as well as fireworks. Thanks very much. When we come back, we're going to look at something else. There were a lot of people who thought things were going to be bad, but there were some people who thought they were not only going to be bad with the turnover, they were going to be the end of the world. And we want to look at how they feel this morning when it didn't happen. We'll be back after this message.
This ABC News special, The Year 2000, Dawn of a New Era, will return in a moment.
Happy to you. Happy.
It also washes away unwanted birthdays. Daily Renewal Cleanser with beta-hydroxy complex reduces the look of fine lines. From Olay, proven to help you look younger.
There is a minute in each morning when the day is fresh and ripe with possibility. A minute where you stand tall before the day, drink it all in, and say to yourself, today, the deep end. That minute was made for Minute Maid. The taste as fresh and ripe as morning itself. Drink in 100% Minute Maid Premium and squeeze the day.
For sinus sufferers, it can start with a twinge or perhaps a slight pressure. For everyone, there's a signal. Your sinuses are gonna be trouble. Don't let it happen. Take Sudafed at the first sign. Untreated sinus pressure can escalate to pain. But now, taking Sudafed at the first sign releases pressure, so symptoms don't get worse.
The first sign of pressure, that's my signal.
Stop sinus pain before it starts. Take non-drowsy Sudafed at the first sign.
Actual size of hazelnut. Actual size of hazelnut flavor in Hazelnut Flavor Coffee Mate. The rich, creamy taste of Carnation Coffee Mate from Nestle. Flavor doesn't get any bigger.
Sis, I snooped in your medicine cabinet. So? You switched to X-Lax.
Yeah, Correctol works with something artificial. X-Lax works with natural senna.
Very effectively, too.
You tried it.
Today's gentle X-Lax with natural vegetable senna. 4 out of 5 users agree. It's dependable overnight.
X-Lax, what a find.
What is Snoop?
Today's X-Lax, good morning, guaranteed. And for relief with the added comfort of a softener, try new X-Lax Gentle Strength.
Monday on 2020, an emotional tug of war. Adopted children searching for their birth mothers. Birth mothers who don't want to be found.
I was also just absolutely terrified.
Can you understand why your birth mother does not want to have contact with you now?
A gripping 2020, Monday.
The year 2000, dawn of a new era. Reporting from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
Over the past few years, there's been no shortage of news reports about people who've been preparing for the millennium in a very different way. They saw the year 2000 as the kickoff for the apocalypse, the end of the world, an idea that is as old as the Bible. ABC's Deborah Amos, who joins us now from New York, has been watching these groups closely. Deb, what about it?
Well, Sam, I think there was some concern that the fringe of the millennium movement might try to do violence to themselves or others to really kick off the end of the world as they saw it. But it's also true, Sam, that there are plenty of millennium groups left who say, well, it wasn't last night. It may be sometime this year. And so we decided to have a look at the roots of those beliefs.
This is the traditional vision of the apocalypse from the Christian book of Revelation. A 7-year period of suffering with floods and fire, beasts and the devil that ends with the return of Christ. But the Bible doesn't set a date. So why do some people believe that this millennium will usher in the apocalypse?
Millennialism, I would say, is the central psychological force that shaped the Western experience. So it's part of our lifeblood, it's part of our culture. We can expect people to be drawn to it, and it affects quite powerfully.
Those earthquakes in Turkey, Hurricane Floyd, El Nino. For a millennium movement called Earth Changes, these are all signs that their version of the apocalypse has already begun.
I think that Mom is about ready.
That's Mom, as in Mother Nature.
Well, it's time to straighten things out, or else I'm not going to be around.
Earth Changers Bob and Zoe Hieronymus think Mother Nature's tired of our abuse, and she's about to strike back.
We're going to lose a lot of Florida, especially this tip in this area here.
Their ideas may seem bizarre, but a quick tour of the internet proves there is no shortage of people who think the end times are coming. Some say the world will end with fire. Some say with floods, but they are all bringing their own spin to the biblical idea of the apocalypse.
It's almost always a belief that the world that they see to be out of whack in some way is going to be set right or transformed or destroyed.
One example, Chen Tao, or the True Way.
They're predicting that eventually 1/3 of the world's population will die in an apocalypse.
Destroyed by the nuclear bomb.
But God will arrive in a God plane to deliver the sex believers.
The Unarians have even produced a video to promote their belief that it's not God, but aliens who will announce the arrival of the new millennium.
I am Uriel, and we are Unarians and preparing the Earth people for the great Starship landing in 2001.
Their message is much more joyous. The Space Brothers are coming. They're going to create a new university to re-educate all mankind in the ways of peace.
Do you ever find yourself, when you talk to these people, having to stifle a giggle?
Yeah, you do. Sometimes they're funny in an unintentional way, but usually as you get closer to them, you realize it's not a joke, and it's a very serious thing that has changed their life in a fundamental way.
Even when you get an earthquake or a disaster that drives people to believe that it's the end of the world and they are scared, what it leads them to do is to repent, to forgive each other. The real driving force of apocalypticism and millennialism is not fear, but hope.
So like the Bible version, the end is really just the beginning.
Sam, I talked to some millennialists last night, and in fact, they were disappointed. They wanted the end of the world to come, and you can see why, because it's not really the end, it's the beginning. And they think that they will be the good people who will be saved, and they will go to a miraculous future. Now, there's always a way to explain this. Almost all groups say, well, there was enough prayer, or the aliens weren't ready. And in the last century, when the end of the world didn't come, it was called the Great Disappointment.
Yes, but the last century, something's different, isn't it, Deborah? You and I were talking about this, and that is, it's space now. It's spaceships. It's out there rather than just in here.
On the internet, you can read about these groups who believe that the aliens are coming, and that is something new. in this century, and it happened after the 50s when there were all of those stories from Roswell, New Mexico, about aliens, and a story that was suppressed by the U.S. government. And that's when you began to see aliens creeping into millennialism in this country.
Deborah, forgive me, I'm from New Mexico, and those were not little green bodies. I don't believe, but I don't want to start a big argument here. You know, those poor souls who committed suicide in California, believing that they were going to find a spaceship behind the Hale-Bopp comet. Are we going to have to look forward to more of those kinds of tragedies?
I don't think so, Sam. I think it's only in the rare case that people are willing to do violence to themselves or to others. Most of them are just people who actually get something out of this. It's a belief system, a complete one. It makes them feel better about themselves. They don't harm other people. They are just part of a group who believes like they do. And as you could see from the Unarians, it's a lovely, lovely group of people who just happen to think that the Space Brothers are coming this year.
Okay, so you can either play bridge, or you can go skiing, or you can be people who believe in the apocalypse. Thanks, Deborah. Thanks very much for a great report.
Thanks, Sam.
When we come back, we're going to talk to two people. Now, the word experts is overused, but these two people are experts on the here and the future when it comes to technology in this world. We'll be back in just a moment.
You know my friend Mr. Moretti, he worries about the arthritis pain in my hands. So he came with me to the doctor. Now I am on a wonderful treatment.
Tylenol Arthritis Extended Relief. It works as well as the leading arthritis prescription, but is much gentler to your stomach.
Mr. Moretti says I have beautiful hands.
Tylenol Arthritis. Take comfort in our strength.
Now at Zales, you'll find exquisite diamond and platinum jewelry. Your choice, only $199. Here's to another 1,000 years of falling in love. At Zales stores or shop online at zales.com.
This is the time to come alive, to wake the spirit inside. Just taste that mountain grown brew. Now I'll leave my crew. That's fun. Racing towards the rising sun. The best part of waking up. Waking up. There's Folgers in your cup.
If you're gonna laugh, laugh. If you're gonna dig in. Warm, rich, rousing baked apple. One of the new sensations from Quaker Oatmeal. Just don't hold back.
You lingered over the coffee pot. Now you can't eclipse it. A spicy lunch and your breath is hot. Now you can't eclipse it.
Discover new Eclipse Gum from Wrigley. Each piece delivers a powerful burst of fresheners that quickly eliminate the strongest mouth odors.
Say goodbye to all of that. Erase bad breath in seconds flat. Now you can eclipse it, yeah. Now you can eclipse it.
It's new Eclipse Sugar-Free Gum from Wrigley.
I had a wake-up call. I was really overweight, unhealthy. I wanted a good life, and I needed a healthy way to get there. I lost over 50 pounds on the Slim Fast plan.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's like I have a new lease on life.
I'll drink a shake, at least once a day. My energy level right now, on a scale from 1 to 10, it's an 11.
Slim Fast. It's got your vitamins, minerals. It's got your calcium, the nutrients that you need.
It's been a great ride.
Slim Fast every day. Get healthy.
Don't wait another day. Do it now.
On the first Wednesday of the 21st century, Norm and the Drew Carey Show go where no comedies have gone before.
There's a bee in here.
Well, not really, but they're all new.
Is that Lori's sister? Yeah, she looks just like Lori, except she's hot.
The century's first Drew and Norm. It only happens once every 100 years. See you Wednesday on ABC.
The year 2000, dawn of a new era. Reporting from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
Joining me now are two of those experts I was telling you about. Stephanie Moore, who's director of the Y2K problem of Giga Information Group. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
And Michael Saylor, the founder and CEO of MicroStrategy, great company with information.
Thanks for having us.
Well, delighted you're here. Stephanie, we asked Raymond Kelly, the Commissioner of Customs, a few minutes ago about terrorism. What happened? Thank goodness there was none. You're the Y2K expert. There was no Y2K bug, at least so far. Why not?
Well, I think, Sam, that we spent an awful lot of money working on this problem, and there was unprecedented cooperation between the federal government, state and local governments, and private industry. Yesterday, you and I were at a press conference, and John Koskinen was asked the same question, and he said, we spent the money, we spent the time, we put a lot of effort into making sure that systems work, that power didn't fail, and in fact, things have worked out very, very nicely.
Okay, is it over? I mean, we got through the millennium night?
No, absolutely not. I think in terms of what the public cared about, we really cared about utilities failing, ATM machines failing, et cetera, but Monday is a whole new day. We go back to work, business systems start again, mission critical systems that run core processes at our Fortune 500 companies will start again. So there will be a whole new load of problems, I think, not only Monday, but kind of going forward over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then into the future a little bit.
Mike Saylor, at your company, did you have to do Y2K bug fixes?
We made sure we were ready for Y2K, but we had no issues to speak of.
Okay, let's talk about the future issues. You have a million ideas about the future. Look into the future as far as human eye could see, with apologies to Tennyson, and tell us in the tech area what's going to happen.
Well, the most exciting thing coming up in the year 2000 is that computers can now begin to speak, they're going to begin to listen, and they're going to begin to get very personal. So think about a personalized computer that's thinking about your interests and knows where you drive and what you have in the bank and what credit cards are in your wallet and even your medical history, and a proactive computing device that's actually looking in real time at news that's going to impact your life, and it's reaching out to touch you over the web, over wireless devices, and even over voice lines.
Well, give me a couple of examples of how I'm going to like this, how it will change my life.
Well, a computer smart enough to watch the traffic, call you in the morning and tell you which road to take in order to avoid a jam, and maybe suggest that you leave 10 minutes early or 15 minutes late in order to keep you from getting caught in congestion.
Stephanie, do we want this? I mean, or would we like the rural life where we sort of are a friend of man by the side of the road?
No, I think we want this, and I think this sounds a bit dramatic to many, many people, but going forward, companies and individuals are beginning to move into this post-Y2K era where we will use technology to make our lives a lot easier and make our businesses' processes run much more smoothly.
But aren't we then much more dependent on systems that might fail?
Absolutely. We are much more dependent on technology, and of course the United States is the most technologically dependent nation already. We had a big challenge this past couple of years, and we met it, and I think we've learned a lot about information systems, fixing the Y2K bug, and we are kind of primed and ready to go into this whole new world.
Like I said, you had a million ideas. One that I like, explain just very briefly, transportation system in Virginia. They want to spend billions of dollars on new roads, and I'm a commuter in Virginia, and hey, I'm in traffic jams.
Well, if you do the math, you find that 35% of that money they spend on roads is wasted on the day that they put the road into the ground because of congestion. That congestion occurs because there's 5% too much demand on capacity for half an hour a day. So if we can just connect to the 5 million people and convince even 5% of them to drive 15 minutes early or 15 minutes later, we could eliminate that congestion, move average speed limits or speed rates from 5 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour during rush hour, and avoid tens of billions of dollars of necessary expenditures on highways.
Yeah, but what about all the construction workers who don't get to build the new roads then?
Well, you're getting exactly to the crux of the current economy, which is technology companies are currently attacking bricks and mortar companies with a vengeance. My job is to convince the state of Virginia to spend $100 million on intelligent technology and avoid spending $10 billion on concrete and steel.
Now, Stephanie Moore, where does Giga Information Systems fit within this prong?
Well, Giga looks at all different types of technologies, and many of our customers have big, old mainframe systems. They're big, large banks, large insurance companies, but they all want to move into the internet world. So we help our clients figure out how to transition from this brick and mortar business model to the new internet business model.
Do you find resistance, old companies, or do you...
Absolutely. There's such resistance. The brick and mortar companies in many cases don't understand about the internet. They don't understand about the future of computing. And they're really being what we call Amazoned by little companies. If you look at Toys R Us versus eToys, eToys is just a little startup company, but Wall Street loves them. They're involved in the internet, and of course their stock price is much, much higher than Toys R Us, even though Toys R Us is phenomenally larger than eToys and has, obviously tons of infrastructure that eToys doesn't even have.
Stephanie, I know where you spent most of your evening last night with us at ABC News trying to help us understand Y2K. And Michael, I know where you spent most of your evening at the White House with President and Mrs. Clinton and that party. Tell us about that.
I took my mother to the White House last night. It was her first chance to go to the White House, and I believe we saw in that one evening more celebrities than any of us will see in our entire life.
My invitation was lost in the mail, you understand, but I don't consider myself a celebrity. Did they really tell you to wear silk underwear to try to stave off the cold when you went out there on the mall?
Well, I believe there was a big scare about cold on the mall, but the National Park Service did great planning. They provided us with scarves, with hats, and there were portable heaters, so I think everybody really enjoyed the event.
Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy, Stephanie Moore of the Giga Information Group, thank you very much for being with us and talking about the future.
Thanks,
really
Sam.
appreciate it.
Great to be here.
Have a good 1,000 years. Well, before we take a break from poet Calvin Trilling, a few lines he wrote about our millennium fears for the New Yorker.
But still, we're scared of Y2K. There's no one who remains blasé. No awesome monsters held such sway since King Kong grabbed the fair Fay Ray. We try to keep our fears at bay, but one fear makes us say, oy vey. And here's the fear we can't allay. God's thinking of pulling the plug, and not with a bang, but a bug.
Calvin Trilling, apt lines for this first day of the new millennium. We're going to be back with more of our coverage of what happened and what's ahead right after local stations have their say. So stay with us, won't you?
This ABC News special, The Year 2000, Dawn of a New Era, will return in a moment after this from your ABC station.
There's a somebody I'm longing to see.
I have been hiding.
I hope that he
You've been trying to live your life.
turns out to be someone who watch over me.
A whole new season of NYPD Blue, January 11th on ABC. Viewer discretion advised.
Do you think you have the power to change the world?
I can shape the future, one child at a time.
I know I can make a difference in those children's lives, and I know I have.
Who knows where my influence may stop?
I teach.
I teach.
I teach.
Yes, they're teachers, but to the kids they reach, they're heroes.
I think I have the power to change the world. The influence is always there.
Do you have the power to wake up young minds, to be someone's hero, to change someone's life? Reach for that power. Teach. If you want to make an impact on our future, call 1-800-45-TEACH. Want to change the world?
I teach. I teach.
I teach.
I teach. I teach.
Be a teacher. Be a hero.
Excuse me, ma'am. Do you know about the government's Consumer Information Center?
No.
You know, free instant information here on the web. Surely you called for the free Consumer Information Catalog.
No.
That's not who you were just calling.
No, it wasn't.
For free information on topics like raising healthy children, investing for retirement, buying surplus government property, getting federal benefits, information that's always up to date and always accessible, wherever you go.
Well, that sounds interesting.
You know, Pueblo, Colorado.
Oh, Pueblo.
Oh, Pueblo. Oh, Pueblo.
Oh, Pueblo, as in www.pueblo.gsa.gov. That's my favorite website.
See, everyone knows the Consumer Information Center.
Pueblo.
Even if they know it by another name.
Is this going to be on TV?
Helping children and families in need is a continuing goal of the Salvation Army. I'm News 10's Dale Shornack.
I'm Christina Mendonça. During the winter months, the need becomes even greater.
But you can help. Join KXTV 10 as we celebrate 9 years of collecting coats for kids' sake.
Drop off new or worn coats at any Swanson's Cleaners or Gottschalk's locations now through January 2nd.
Remember, a little warmth goes a long way. Make a difference in someone's life. Donate to KXTV 10's Coats for Kids' Sake.
Cooking.
Joe.
Here, we can take our kitchen right out to the field and cook right there. We pick them like
No,
this.
that's milking. That's a no-no. Heavy.
But it's here, Sunday mornings, 10:30.
That's the beautiful thing about Blue Bloom, making people what, aware?
We're ready to rock and roll.
Don't you want to know? We'll show you. That's cracking. Watch us Sunday mornings at 10:30. Oh. And it is wonderful. It's very light.
And it's good for you.
Very good for you. Everything's fresh in there.
As a caring husband and father of 3 daughters, I am keenly aware of the need to fight breast cancer. 1 out of every 9 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer at some point in their life. That concerns me. If discovered at a very early stage, the chances of survival are at their greatest. If you would like more information concerning breast cancer and the importance of early detection, call the American Cancer Society at 1-800-ACS-2345.
Want to taste of something make you feel good?
Leave me alone.
A little crack won't hurt you.
I said no, man.
Good job, son. That's just what you do if that ever happens.
Okay, Dad.
Happy New Year from KXTV 10.
This ABC News special continues. The year 2000, dawn of a new era. Reporting from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
Welcome, or welcome back, as the case may be, to our first broadcast here at ABC News to begin the new millennium. Now, if you are just joining us, good morning. And let us assure you all is well. Apocalypse is not now. The sky is not falling. The dreaded millennium bugged out. In our first hour, our able team of Nightline correspondents offered a quick wrap-up of what came of yesterday's fears and festivities. In London, John Donvan is keeping an eye on our overseas bureaus. And here in Washington, we have Dave Marish, Michelle McQueen, and Chris Bury. Michelle, you're up first. Tell us what you've got.
Well, Sam, I know a lot of people have been concerned about whether they can turn on their computers or not, and we are happy to report that for the most part, you can. There are a few viruses reported out there. We've been working with 2 different companies that track computer viruses, and they've been monitoring the situation all night. One has detected the presence of about a dozen viruses, the other about 7. But these are nuisances, Sam. These are not the kinds of things that wipe out your whole file. In fact, common sense applies, as always. If you get an attachment and you don't know its origin, either don't open it or call the sender. And every user ought to be using some kind of antivirus software, just as a general practice. But on the whole, things are working very well. But I do have to caution you, just as a matter of responsibility, that we really aren't getting the normal volume of technological activity over a holiday weekend. Just the simple technology that all of us use, the telephone, even though a lot of people are calling their relatives to wish them well on the new year. AT&T reports, for example, that they've handled 200 million calls since midnight. But a normal business day, they handle 300 million calls. And as for computer activity, it's true that restaurants, bars, hotels, etc., are seeming to have no difficulties at all processing credit card transactions and things of that sort, and people are not having any trouble with their telephones. The heavy lifting of the computer world, data transmission, doesn't really come into play until the beginning of the week. So there are tests to come in the next couple of days.
Well, Michelle, the normal volume, of course, doesn't account for the fact that most people are asleep this morning, except for our loyal band of viewers. But the viruses are interesting. Joining us now, Stephen Trilling, director of Symantec Antivirus Research Center, which has been tracking viruses around the world for the last 24 hours. Good morning, Stephen. How are you?
Good morning, Sam. Happy New Year.
Well,
Thanks.
how are our viruses?
Pretty good, actually. We've been tracking over the last 24 hours as the time's been changing across the world, and we've reported 7 new viruses. They've all been pretty amateurish in nature. One of them changes your keyboard so that you think you're typing in a Spanish language computer. One of them prints out a long, rambling New Year's message in Portuguese, and one of them is mildly interesting. It looks like a program that's actually checking your computer for a Y2K problem, and at the end it prints out a message saying, this has been a big joke. We really don't think that any of these viruses are threats to customers. But the issue is that, unlike other technology-related problems concerning Y2K, the issue of viruses does not go away now that we've reached January 1st, and consumers need to continue to take the same precautions they have been throughout last year and throughout the new millennium to make sure they protect themselves.
Let's talk about those precautions. You get a message that's an uncertain origin. It seems strange to you. What do you do?
If you get a message, even from somebody you know, that seems a little odd or unusual, for example, if you get a message saying, here are those urgent documents you've been waiting for, and you haven't been waiting for any urgent documents, give the person a phone call. It turns out the telephone is still a very effective low-tech device to protect yourself from these high-tech problems.
But am I correct that you can highlight the message and maybe there's an attachment there? As long as you don't open the attachment, you probably won't get the virus.
That's actually correct. Of course, people exchange attachments, documents, and so on that they need to work with. So oftentimes you need to send documents to somebody else that you need to open. And if you have antivirus software running on your computer, it'll protect you against the case where you open an attachment and it actually has a virus in it. So the safest long-range plan is run antivirus software. Make sure to keep it updated. We get about 5 to 15 new viruses into our lab every single day. It's important for users to update their software regularly in order to be protected against the latest threats.
Okay, so you run this software, but you have this message. You don't feel absolutely certain it's a virus, or at least it's mysterious. You hit the delete, that little X, and just take it away?
Yeah, antivirus software can either be used to delete the file or it can actually be used to repair the file. If you have a file that's been infected by a virus and has maybe been altered so you can no longer see the data that used to be in your document, the software will actually repair the document so that now you can open it and look at it again. So again, that's why antivirus software is very useful. You don't have to delete data that might be infected. You can actually recover it and continue working.
You're an effective teacher and an effective salesman. Thank you very much, Stephen Trilling of Symantec, for being with us. Chris Bury's been taking a look at a lot of things for us this morning, including that threat of terrorism that everybody worried about. What about the worry? What happened?
Sam, it seems that the biggest national security threat last night may have been all those champagne corks popping. The millennium fears, as it turned out, were vastly overblown. At Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado, Russian and American officers worked side by side to make certain there were no misunderstandings involving nuclear weapons.
We have seen some missile launches. However, none of those are reportable.
That led to a momentary gasp, but it turned out those Russian missiles were Scuds, part of their routine attack on the Chechen capital of Grozny. On American soil, the rocket's red glare came only from the fireworks in every major American city. And the big news this morning is how remarkably peaceful and civil those millennium parties were. Most police departments tell us the number of arrests was more in line with a typical Friday night than with the biggest celebration in 1,000 years. Yes, there were isolated problems. In Los Angeles, police reported hundreds of gunshots fired into the air. A 12-year-old boy was struck in the head shortly after midnight, and a $2 million device designed to track the origins of those gunshots failed to tell them apart from the fireworks. There were also a few bomb scares in Alaska, Oregon, and Illinois, but no known acts of terrorism. Still, Americans are being cautioned not to completely let down their guards. In fact, the most recent State Department warning states that, quote, terrorists may be planning to conduct attacks against official and non-official Americans in and around the New Year period from now until mid-January 2000. And the message there, Sam, is that law enforcement officials may have to hold their collective breath just a little while longer.
Right you are, Chris, but as you say, except for isolated incidents, pretty peaceful last night.
Remarkably quiet.
All right, so what about transportation? Did the planes fly? Did the trains run? Did the trucks rumble? Dave Marish has been surveying that scene, and what's the answer to those questions, David?
Well, Sam, when it comes to the infrastructure of America, the key element in keeping everything rolling through this Y2K rollover was America's power grid, which performed almost perfectly all night and through the morning. What power outages have occurred for what might be called traditional or normal reasons. For example, there was the unwary woodman who felled a tree and knocked down power lines in West Virginia. There were the gunshots that knocked out a transformer in Detroit. There was the Mylar balloon that became entangled in power lines and caused an outage in Minnesota. And down in South Texas, about 20,000 homes lost power for what were not Y2K related, but what the Y2K Center in Texas called normal reasons. Quote, idiots running into power poles. Happens all the time down there, they said. Now, perhaps the most blissed out bunch of folks in America this morning are air travelers. Take a look at this live picture, Sam, from O'Hare Airport in Chicago. Normally, this is the second busiest airport in America. Well, take a look at it this morning. You could have a bowling tournament going down that main concourse. With major airlines reducing their flight levels by 20 to 35% yesterday, 5 to 35% today, the passenger load for this New Year's weekend is down by 500,000 compared to last year. Now, of course, Sam, the next time you or I are in O'Hare, probably every one of those 500,000 people will be on the very ticket line or in front of the very metal detector that you and I will have to pass through.
David, every time I'm in O'Hare, maybe not quite every time, I can't see 3 feet ahead of me. There's a lot of fog sometimes in Chicago.
Well, the weather wasn't bad, but traffic was way down, and it is a most peaceful place this morning, a most un-O'Hare-like place.
Okay,
Sam.
stay on the job. We'll be back to you. And when we come back, we're going to look at the world, what's happened abroad in all of these areas, and particularly we're going to look at the Middle East. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment.
This ABC News special, The Year 2000, Dawn of a New Era, will return in a moment.
Now at Zales, you'll find exquisite diamond and platinum jewelry. Your choice, only $199. Here's to another 1,000 years of falling in love. At Zales stores or shop online at zales.com.
I don't smell him. I'm the only cat left. It's all mine.
You'd never know there were 3 cats in here.
3? Formulated for multiple cats?
Tidy cats. Multiple strength.
For multiple cats. I had a wake-up call. I was really overweight, unhealthy. I wanted a good life, and I needed a healthy way to get there. I lost over 50 pounds on the Slim Fast plan. Awesome. Yeah. It's like I have a new lease on life. I'll drink a shake, at least once a day. My energy level right now, on a scale from 1 to 10, it's an 11. Slim Fast. It's got your vitamins, minerals. It's got your calcium, the nutrients that you need. It's been a great ride. Slim Fast every day. Get healthy. Don't wait another day. Do it now.
Presenting the first ever full-length animated motion picture, exclusively in IMAX theaters. Walt Disney Pictures Fantasia 2000, the IMAX experience. 7 all-new journeys into the imagination, along with a classic favorite in a motion picture unlike any other. Walt Disney Pictures Fantasia 2000, the IMAX experience. Rated G, now playing in IMAX theaters worldwide.
First, the bad news. That red nose your cold's giving you, your tissue may be making it worse. Blow after blow, a tissue can irritate your already vulnerable skin. Puffs Plus. It soothes better than that other national brand because it has lotion with aloe and vitamin E. Get the most soothing puffs ever. Puffs Plus. It feels better because it soothes better.
I'm ready to rumble. I'm gonna beat you like a dog. I'm your daddy today.
That's right. Beat him like
I told you I was coming.
Right.
You thought that it was over, didn't you? You thought you had a chance, but I'm here today. I told you I was coming.
Once in a century, along comes a man whose strength and courage raises him above all others.
I am the greatest.
This is how we got there.
This is my history today.
Terrence Howard and the Practices Steve Harris star in Muhammad Ali, King of the World, Monday, January 10th on ABC.
I'm gonna shake up the world.
The Year 2000, Dawn of a New Era. Reporting from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
Welcome back to our tour at Horizon of the present, what happened, a little bit of a peek into the future, and where better to start the tour right now than in London with a man who's been looking at the whole world, John Donvan. John, when you look, what do you see?
I see basically the same story you're seeing there. It's a pretty safe, still functioning world. Australia, India, China, the Middle East, the phones are still on, planes are still flying, and thankfully there has been no terrorism. Now, are there some sour notes? Yes, we found some sour notes. We're going to take a look at some tape now. This comes from Copenhagen, and this was last night a New Year's Eve celebration, and violence, Molotov cocktails by hooligans, but this hooliganism happens every year. So can we call this a Y2K glitch? Not really. Also here in the United Kingdom, in the early hours of the morning, a Cezanne painting was stolen from a museum in Oxford. It's worth $3.2 million. A Y2K event? Maybe, but probably not. So the point is that in terms of the sorts of things we were expecting to go wrong or fearing would go wrong, it just didn't happen. Certain countries took precautions. In Cairo and Istanbul, they stopped the subway trains from running overnight so that people wouldn't get stuck on them, but apparently those systems are running fine. In other parts of the world, really minor stuff. In Australia, if you want to buy a bus ticket on certain buses, apparently the machines have jammed up because of the Y2K bug. In China, certain taxis found their taxi meters stopped running because of the Y2K bug. But it's that sort of little stuff. In Israel, no terrorism, despite concerns there. And in Italy, the country that everybody was looking at as unprepared because the Italians seemed to take a somewhat relaxed attitude towards this whole thing and didn't really get serious until a few months ago. Apparently, in Italy, everything, as always, is glorious. And finally, in Russia, the Russians have a new president, a new acting president, and that was the surprise of the day. But the nukes are still in their silos, and the nuclear power plants are still working, and Russia has no real problems to report.
John, let me ask you about that last point, because people were looking at these nuclear power plants. I think there are about 411 of them around the world, some 51 that were made by the former Soviet Union, and worried that perhaps if they lost power, there might be some sort of meltdown. What happened in that area specifically?
Apparently, everything still is functioning well. In fact, the only place we know of a potential nuclear threat was in Japan, which would not have been using Soviet-made systems, and apparently in 4 Japanese nuclear plants, the machinery that monitors radiation was hooked up to a computer which did not survive the Y2K turnover. Those computers stopped working and the equipment stopped working, but the Japanese insist that they have that situation in hand, and they didn't shut down the plants. So apparently the nuclear threat globally is not really a threat.
Well, you know, I think we were very careful at ABC News not to try to scare people ahead of time, but now that it's over and it was safe, let's talk about the defense systems. Do you remember a while back when Norway fired a rocket, a peaceful rocket, and the Russian defense system, the radars that look at this, thought that they were under attack and went up to a very high state of readiness, and people said that might happen this time?
And apparently, as a precaution, and definitely as a precaution, what the Americans and the Russians have done are put personnel into each other's countries. So there are Russians out in Colorado standing side by side with American generals watching the early warning system, and if that system accidentally, because of a computer glitch, portrays an attack that isn't happening, what the Russians are there to do is to phone Moscow and say, make sure that nothing happened. Now, there were some Scud missiles fired, apparently in relation to Russia's war with Chechnya, in Chechnya. Scud missiles were fired. This was picked up. There was a momentary concern that maybe something really awful was happening, but the phone calls were made, and the Russians were able to assure the Americans that this was an internal affair and that no missiles are being fired the way of the United States.
In other words, we're just trying to kill people in Chechnya. Don't worry about it. You're safe.
Well, could put it that way.
Well,
in any case, the point was that it was it was neither a nuclear holocaust nor was it the computers thinking that they were watching a nuclear holocaust because the Y2K bug was making them think that way.
John Donvan, thanks very much. Stay with us. We still have a long way to go. John mentioned briefly the Middle East, that there was no great terrorism in Israel or the surrounding countries. And if there was one spot on the globe where terrorism constantly crops up as a political device, of course, mainly, it is there. So we want to go to Gillian Findlay now in Jerusalem. Gillian, first tell us, no problems?
No problems at all here. No problems at all here, Sam. Because Israel is always ready for war, this country is more prepared than others to deal with the Y2K glitches. At least that's what the authorities here were bragging about before the new millennium. Last night, midnight came and went, and there were no glitches at all. The first dawn of the century and the millennium came quietly to the Holy Land, greeted by church bells. In the old city of Jerusalem, religious Jews hurried to prayer. This is not their millennium, and today is their Sabbath. So it was mostly Muslim shops and businesses that were the first to find out whether the Y2K bug had bit. It hadn't.
We are here today. This is the first day of 2000. Nothing happened.
Everywhere this morning, the electricity was on and computers were working. So what, many asked, was the scare all about?
I guess it was a conspiracy or something like that, you know, for people to get more money for the computers or something.
In the run-up to the millennium, this country's biggest concern was not computers, but security. Everywhere last night, as people partied or prayed, Israeli police were close by. 12,000 were on duty for the new year to guard against terrorists and to protect the city's holy sites. In Bethlehem, where thousands of Palestinians celebrated at one of Christianity's holiest places, Palestinian police were also on the lookout. All day, they passed around photos of members of what they said was an apocalyptic Christian cult that they believe might be planning trouble. What authorities were most worried about were Christians who hoped the Messiah would return last night and who might have tried to provoke the second coming through violence. In the last few months, dozens of Christians have been deported from Israel, but last night all was peaceful. Even on the Mount of Olives, the place the Bible says Jesus will come to when he does return. Those who gathered there last night were mostly curious, like Billy from New York.
People were saying that something was going to happen, either the mountain was going to split in two, and Jesus was going to come back, or the end of the world, or all those things. So we decided to come.
In the end, though, he did not come, at least not as far as we know. The gate through which believers say he will one day enter Jerusalem to rule in glory remains sealed. A disappointment for some, perhaps, but the party continued. Now, Sam, Israeli authorities are quick to point out that while the millennium may have passed, the security threat has not. Compared to the number of people that were expected to come here, very few Christian pilgrims actually came for the 2000 celebrations. Israel is still hoping and expecting millions will visit later this year, and they say they will be ready.
Jillian, authorities keep these things very close to their vest. You may not be able to answer this question, but do we know whether, in fact, there were terrorist acts that people wanted to carry out, but it was thwarted by the authorities, or, in fact, no one tried?
We don't know, Sam. As you say, they keep that information very close to their chest. 2 days ago, there was an arrest made near the Temple Mount, or what the Muslims call Al-Haram. They arrested an Israeli man, an Israeli Arab man with an Uzi machine gun. Now, we don't know whether that was something that they thwarted, somebody who just walked in mistakenly, not knowing that he couldn't bring a weapon to that place. That's the most recent and really the only example that we've been told about in the last few months leading up to this day.
You also talk about the crowds were a little smaller than expected in the Christian world, certainly this particular holy time. How do the Israelis feel about that? Because in a sense, the terrorists accomplish their aims, at least economically, if they keep people away.
Well, I think it's not fair to say that the crowds were smaller simply because of terrorism, and certainly not because of the most recent travel warnings that were issued by the American State Department, for example. For months now, tour operators have been telling us not to expect big crowds this time. They say, yes, there's always this residual fear of terrorism. People were more afraid, they say, of Y2K glitches. They didn't want to be traveling this time of year. And they say Americans in particular decided that they wanted to spend these holidays at home with their families. If they're going to come to Israel, if they're going to visit the Holy Land, they'd maybe rather come at Easter time. The weather, although it's great here today, is even better at that time of year. The Pope is coming then, and so that's why they're pretty confident that there will be more people here in a couple of months.
Jillian Findley, thanks for joining us. Jillian from Jerusalem, and I'm very delighted it all's calm there. When we come back, we'll talk more about how the world is this first day of the millennium. But first, our local stations have something to say. Let's let them do it. We'll be back, though, in a few minutes. Stay with us.
We
cover the news. We cover the news every day. We've seen a lot of stories.
It's a tough thing for a reporter to see.
You feel a mixture of fear, adrenaline, and the need to get it on the air.
And we met a lot of people.
You got to know the family, and you felt their pain.
These are the ones we'll never forget.
The scene was chaos.
To first see them being rescued, it was a miracle.
I'm Christina Mendonça. Join us as the area's most experienced team of reporters share their most memorable moments with you. News 10 remembers, tonight at 10 p.m.
Please don't try this at home. I grew up in Illinois, and when I was a little girl, big storms would come through. My dad would tell my mom and me to go into the house and find a safe place. But he would run outside in the backyard, climb on the top of an 8-foot metal shed, and wait for the storms to come through, and try to take pictures of tornadoes and lightning. Very unsafe thing to do. But I think my dad's enthusiasm for storms made me feel the same way, fascinated with weather.
Alyssa Lynn, weeknights on News 10.
Every year, Goodwill Industries helps people discover a new day of the week. Payday. We provide job training for people with disabilities and other special needs, so they can get jobs, earn paychecks, and lead independent lives. Support Goodwill Industries. Our business works so people can.
Take a water sample, try and take it down low, take these back to the classroom.
You know, most tornadoes go southwest.
Can you name one thing that we do in caring for the guinea pig to make it?
The child you interest in science today.
Take a look at this cell right here. What do you think?
Everything's gonna be okay. You're gonna be fine.
May save your life or your world tomorrow.
Let's hit the hazmat.
Here we go, Peter. 20,000 lights from the base of the Eiffel Tower going up 1,000 feet to the top. And in about 2 minutes, the fireworks will start. Those lights are supposed to be climbing up the Eiffel Tower. There they go. It's 1 minute to midnight here, Peter. Climbing 1,000 feet. There is still 1 minute to go to the top of the Eiffel Tower. Seconds to midnight. We're almost at the top of the tower. 1,000 feet. This can be seen all over Paris. Ten seconds to midnight in Paris. going to be pure white. Now you can see. They spent 3 years planning this.
The National Radon Test is about to begin. Radon enters your home from underground. Some people are immune to radon. New homes can be built to protect your family from radon. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer. You can call 1-800-SOS-RADON to find out how to get your family's home tested and made safer.
Out! Out! There's no ways out! It's impossible!
Actually, Coach, it's not. See, Jimmy had to travel a distance of 90 feet. He reached an average speed of 15 miles per hour. The ball left 2 seconds later than Jimmy and had to go 1.5 times the distance.
If education is important to you, talk to your child's school about raising academic standards. Call 1-800-38-BE-SMART for a free booklet and be a big league parent.
Enabling it to reach the destination at a much quicker rate.
Did you factor in the wind speed?
This ABC News special continues. The year 2000, dawn of a new era. Reporting from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
Hello, welcome to this dawn of the new era. First, I have to tell you, if you just woke up, everything's fine. The world still is safe, still no big problems, just some minor glitches, no big terrorism, not even some minor terrorism, some hooliganism, place to place. And the Y2K bug, to use the new cliche, did not bite. At least it is not bitten yet. We may have more on that in a moment. Let's take a look at what's happened in the world when it comes to communicating, because that was one of the big fears, and Michelle McQueen has been looking at that. And Michelle, we can talk to each other?
Yes.
Well, let's talk. Go ahead.
Well, Sam, it is important to remember that there were a lot of expectations for today. For example, FCC Commissioner Michael Powell predicted that the volume of calls would be like Mother's Day on Viagra, to mix up a few more metaphors into the stew here. But that didn't happen. Not all of the telephone companies were able to report specific figures to us. But for example, Bell South reported that they had the same volume of calls as last year. It was about 290 million calls, almost the same as Mother's Day. But Hurricane Floyd was a whopping 515 million plus. And the Monday after Thanksgiving, 485 million calls. SBC, which is the parent company of Ameritech, Southwestern Bell, Pacific Bell, and Nevada Bell, reported that they had a lot more calls after midnight than, but again, nothing remarkable. GTE said that they nothing like Mother's Day. AT&T, as we told you earlier, reported that they've had about 200 million calls since midnight, but that's nowhere near a typical business day. Now, why might that be? Well, some of the companies did ask their customers to hold off calling at midnight, as many people like to do. They like to call a minute after midnight or two, wish their relatives well, and many people did, like my relatives did, which is to offer their Happy New Year's greetings a day early to avoid overtaxing the system. But one consultant that we've been working with tracking this issue said that he thought it was just too hard to drink champagne, kiss your loved ones, and stay on the phone at midnight all at once. So there you have it.
Well, Michelle, you've got smart relatives. When I got home, having worked past midnight last night, I found on my answering machine messages of good cheer from 2 of my children. I would like to say to the other 2, where were you? There'll be time today. Joining us now from Bedminster, New Jersey, is Frank Ianna, the president of network services for AT&T. And for the past 24 hours, Mr. Ianna has been monitoring all the long-distance calls from the company's network operations center. You tired?
Not really, Sam. It's been a very good night, and we did a lot of good work here yesterday, and it's been a very successful turnover to the new millennium.
Okay, well, you were and all your staff was on duty in case there was some huge volume and overload. First, what was the potential problem that you were prepared for?
Well, potential problems could have been computer malfunctions, and obviously we spent a lot of time to ensure that that would not happen, and also the overload conditions that would normally occur when you have focused calling going on because of the time zone changes. We did see a lot of spikes in traffic to some of the international countries as they switched over to the new millennium, but very quickly the calling patterns returned to normal.
The overload, is that when I get the recorded message which says, we're sorry, the circuits are busy, please try again?
That's right, that's right. Some congestion on the network, and if you wait a minute or two and try again, you'll probably get through.
All right, I understand some little spy told me that you had a pool going there as to which of our continental United States time zones might go down first.
Well, there was a little pool going on as to which time zone would cause the problems first, and no one won.
No, because there were no great problems.
There were no big problems at all.
Why do you think people, was it because of all the advertising which warned people about the so-called Mother's Day phenomenon? Why do you think the calling was a little lighter than it might have been?
Well, normally on a weekend or on a holiday, it's lighter than a business day. Typical business day starts out with the heaviest traffic on a Monday, probably in excess of 300 million calls, and tails down toward the end of the week. And on a weekend, it's only about half of that. And on a typical holiday, you may see around 200 million calls, and that's about what we handled yesterday. Particularly heavy on the international side, where we handled twice as many calls as a typical Friday in December.
You've just said that the weekend it's lighter, and yet what is this thing called the Mother's Day phenomenon? I mean, Mother's Day happens on a Sunday, and that's supposed to be when the great overload occurs.
Well, the Mother's Day phenomenon is different calling patterns that stress different parts of the network to places like Florida and Arizona, where there are a lot of maybe retired parents. That's a different calling pattern that you would normally see in a business day. That's what stresses the network.
Well, everything went well, thank goodness, but we reporters are reduced then to playing the what-if game. What would you have done? How does the system work if there had been a catastrophe in one of the sections? How do you try to make up for that?
Well, what we try to do is we have some automatic restoration capability. If there were cables that failed, we have systems that would automatically route around that. We would take controls here at the Network Operations Center to ensure that if there was one area that was a particular problem, that it didn't impact the rest of the network, because the network can very quickly find paths through the network to make sure that your call gets through. So we were manning all of the stations here to ensure that we could take action if necessary, if the computers weren't doing that for us, and quite frankly, everything worked very nicely.
Frank Ianna of AT&T, thanks very much for talking to us this morning from your big center in Bedminster. Go home and get a little rest. Well, I don't want to be doomsayer. I'm in the what-if business, but very clearly, it ain't over yet. The fat lady, since we're into cliches, has not sung. Marcia Stepanek is with us, and there was no reference to you, Marcia, in talking about that old cliche. Business Week reporter who follows Y2K. And Marcia, tell us why it isn't over yet.
Well, it's not over. We've had a lovely weekend, but we're not ready to exhale yet. And I'm not going to be the fat lady who sings here.
No, we can see that.
Thank you. Basically, the whole world has been shut off, unplugged, if you will, for the past couple of days. And starting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're going to start slowly plugging back in. Banks, of course, have been closed. Trading has not been occurring. Factories haven't been up. So we'll see over the next few days whether your baggage gets lost more often than usual, for example, whether factory robots are going to be freaking out. Basically whether loan data is going to be getting through accurately. All sorts of things to look at. So we're not out of the woods yet.
When I was told that the banking system, the FDIC required the banking system to back up all of the customer information in case things had gone badly.
Yeah, that's true. And of course, there's been plenty of advice to consumers to back up their own information. But we still don't know whether all the systems will work wonderfully together. This is a story about interconnectivity. While your own house can be in order, you never know whether your neighbor's is going to be until all these computers start talking to each other again. And that's going to be the real test.
Well, talk to us just a moment about what someone told me was the degrading process that could occur. It rolls over at midnight last night, everything's fine, but that there are systems that check the computers, that if they themselves aren't right,
that's correct.
After a while, what happens?
Well, after a while, you get a lot of corrupt data. In fact, one of the big Y2K expert groups, the Gartner Group, is saying that only 10% of any potential Y2K bugs have bit already. 90% will start to corrupt data. We'll see over the next 3 quarters.
90%?
Yeah, we've got a lot of IT budgets that have been set aside for fixing some of the non-mission critical problems that should be popping up a little bit here and there, a little bit here and there. We don't know exactly for sure. Nobody's expecting the sky to fall, but this is a bug, and let me just point out there are many bugs, not just the Y2K
Well,
bug.
what does this mean for companies that spend a lot of money already? I used the figure last night that someone gave me of $100 billion. Are they still spending for the next few months? Are they still buying the fixes?
They're still spending. A lot of companies are still locked down. They're not implementing any new technology until we get past this hump. Some are locking down well into the first quarter. The good news in all of this is maybe in the second half, third quarter, a lot of pent-up demand for new e-commerce technology that can finally be installed once we're sure this thing is behind us.
Marcia Stepanek of Business Week, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
And we hope to have you back, but not in any apocalyptic sense. Thanks very much. When we come back, we're going to talk to the Reverend Jerry Falwell, president of Liberty College from Lynchburg, Virginia. Reverend Falwell had some concerns going into the millennium that things might not work, and we want to talk to him about those and what he sees ahead. We'll be back in just a moment.
Is your asthma really under control?
Yeah, but sometimes I wheeze.
Ever wake up short of breath?
I do.
Use your fast-acting inhaler more than twice a week.
I use mine every day.
If that's what you call control, ask your doctor if prescription Flovent is right for you. Flovent twice a day helps control the inflammation that can cause asthma symptoms in the first place and helps improve lung function. Flovent won't replace fast-acting inhalers for sudden attacks. People switching from an oral steroid like prednisone to Flovent, an inhaled steroid, need to be especially careful. While adjusting to the switch, your body is not as able to heal after surgery, infection, or serious injury. See your doctor if your asthma does not improve.
Now this is control.
Flovent, helping you define asthma control.
I have 3 kids. I don't have a minute to eat right. I gained weight.
If you want a delicious way to lose weight from SlimFast, grab a meal on the go bar.
It's perfect for my life.
They're fantastic. The peanut butter's incredible. I lost 14 pounds on the SlimFast plan. Just grab a bar. It's lunch.
22 vitamins and minerals, high in calcium, a well-balanced meal in 4 fantastic flavors.
I feel great. I really feel like I have control.
SlimFast meal on the go bars. Every day. Balanced nutrition for a healthy life.
The bars are a great idea.
When it comes to traditional luxury, it's anything but more of the same. Introducing the all-new 2000 Bonneville. Screaming with attitude you'd never expect in a luxury sports sedan. More luxury. More attitude. The all-new 2000 Bonneville by Pontiac.
Actual size of vanilla bean. Actual size of vanilla flavor in French Vanilla Coffee Mate. The rich, creamy taste of Carnation Coffee Mate from Nestle. Flavor doesn't get any bigger.
They were 2 of television's best friends, and after nearly 20 years,
Mary, Rhoda,
they're back together again.
what were we thinking?
I don't know.
Mary Tyler Moore and Valerie Harper.
You look great.
An ABC original movie.
To new beginning.
Mary and Rhoda, coming in February.
The year 2000, dawn of a new era. Reporting from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
A little over a year ago, in a television broadcast, the Reverend Jerry Falwell called Y2K, and I quote, God's instrument to shake this nation, to humble this nation. Reverend Falwell joins us now from Lynchburg, Virginia.
Well, Sam, about a year and a half ago, I was very, very concerned about what was going on, as were many others. We have not only a large ministry here in America, but we have missionaries in every nation on earth. And yesterday, as I was beginning to get emails about noon from Australia and the Philippines and China and other places out there, Taiwan, we began to realize that, amazingly, everybody had risen to the task. But about a year and a half, I was deeply concerned, cautioned our people, as most pastors did, that we could have a dilemma here that could cause us a problem. I want to commend government, the private sector, everyone for a job well done, and no one is happier than I am today.
Well, Reverend Falwell, a lot of people were concerned. You weren't the only one. And from the standpoint of looking ahead, a lot of us have made some bad predictions over the years. But I have to ask you this question. Are you, in just a general way, looking for the Lord to punish the earth?
Well, that's not the terminology that I would use. I would say that as we enter this new millennium, and I won't argue with the technicians who say it's a year from now, but practically we're there now. I do believe that pastors, particularly pastors, have an awesome task to help, particularly here in America, to return this nation to the Judeo-Christian ethic, and I do believe that what we sow, we reap. On the other hand, I think there's a lot of faith everywhere. I've never noticed so much manifestation of faith and family as I have in recent times in America and worldwide. In the last century, that is 2 centuries back now, the 19th, the world population reached 1 billion for the first time. In the last century, the 20th, we reached 6 billion, and demographic experts are saying probably 10 billion by the middle of this century. That changes the equation, that changes everything, and it just means we have an awesome task to preach the gospel, the death, burial, resurrection of Christ, to point men to the Lord, to try to rebuild a family. That we had a 6% divorce rate in 1900. We ended the century with a 50% divorce rate. We've got to change that.
Well, Reverend Falwell, the Bible teaches us that we will not know the moment of our Lord's return, right, the Christian Bible, but it says that there will be signs. Now, as you look at the signs of the world today, do you think that the second coming is nigh?
I really do, Sam. I think the regathering and the reformation of the State of Israel in 1948 was clearly one of the most powerful signs of the Lord's soon return. And I think that the formation of the European Economic Community, and forgive this throat problem I have, my children and grandchildren are in town, and we celebrated last night. And
you did?
But I lost. Yelling over the heads of 5 grandchildren is tough on a preacher. But we had
a little touch of champagne also.
No champagne.
Oh, okay.
No, we Baptists don't do that.
All right.
But I personally feel that there are signs everywhere. The revival of the old Roman Empire, and then Daniel predicted 2,700 years ago that in the last days many shall run to and fro, knowledge shall be increased. The increase of knowledge, transportation, technological explosion, as I said earlier, the equation has changed everywhere. And I do believe the next great event on God's calendar, though I have no idea what the date, time, or day is the coming of the Lord Jesus to rapture out his church.
Reverend Falwell, in years past, I know you've taken a great interest in politics, and you've been active in that field. So look ahead. Do you have preferences in the upcoming elections?
Well, I'm a friend of the Bush family, and I loved and appreciated George W., the old man, and his, forgive me, George and Barbara. And I have the same admiration for George W., and I would hope that he is our next president, and that we will get 4 to 8 years of good leadership and stabilizing and bringing respect and dignity back to the Oval Office.
Well, we're going to have to give equal time to all of the other candidates, but I asked the question and you gave the answer. Sum up for us then where you think we are at the beginning of this new millennium. We don't have much time, but just look ahead and say what you think is going to happen.
Well, looking in a practical and realistic way, we are in a moral tailspin. There's no question we've lowered the moral bar, and I'm not just talking about the impeachment and all that kind of thing. I'm talking about the last generation when we eliminated voluntary prayer in the public schools. I respect the president for, in the last week, putting new guidelines out that would hopefully bring voluntary prayer back to the schools. But we have tried to become a secular nation, and we've tried to forget who we are, a nation under God, built upon the Judeo-Christian ethic. Unless we turn it around, a 50% divorce rate, 70% of all African-American children born this year, last year were born out of wedlock, 30% of all white children. We've got to change that.
Reverend, we get the idea. We thank you for being with us this morning. Take care of your throat, with or without the champagne, and I shouldn't have asked a question, and knowing how the Baptists feel.
Happy New Millennium, Sam.
And happy millennium to you, sir. When we come back, we're going to have a lovely look at the way the Italians coped from my very lovely co-anchor, Cokie Roberts, after this message.
In the last 13 years, Nicorette helped over 1 million people help themselves stop smoking. And that was the reason that convinced me to use Nicorette. All these people knew it was safe and effective. Nicorette delivers a low level of nicotine fast to help control cravings without the tars and toxins found in cigarettes. And Nicorette was proven safe and effective in more clinical trials than any other product. Just the idea that Nicorette had helped all those people made me feel that Nicorette was the right choice for me in the end. Which it was.
Nicorette helps you fight your cravings, your habit, your way. You can do it. Nicorette can help.
Oh, the tragedy of using a dandruff shampoo. Note how isolated it makes people feel. Note its unpleasant smell, the absence of rich lather. Note its name. Nizoral AD, the world's #1 prescribed ingredient for dandruff in non-prescription strength. People can stay dandruff-free by doing this with Nizoral AD only twice a week. Only twice a week. What a pity. Nizoral AD, the freedom will go to your head.
Hi, Mom. 4 o'clock? Great. Love you too.
At least he knew enough to use Bounty, the surprisingly strong paper towel.
Hi, Mom.
Hey, sweet. Oh, my. What happened?
The quilted tough picker-upper, Bounty.
Sans soleil, la fleur périt et puis s'évanouit. Oh, quel
Introducing Slim Fast Cappuccino Delight. One taste, and you'll fall in love. Made with rich imported coffee, fat-free milk, cool, smooth. There's never been a more irresistible way to lose weight and feel great. New Slim Fast Cappuccino Delight. Taste it and fall in love.
He had power that could not be matched. Courage that could not be shaken.
I will not wear the clothes of a guilty man.
And a spirit.
We gotta take it to the federal...
Day, January 9th. It's the first new practice of a new millennium.
I think something is going on.
A controversial client fires up a lawyer's passion in more ways than one.
1.6 times a week. Last year, it was 3.9. I need more sex.
An all-new practice returns ABC Sunday, January 9th.
You do the math.
The year 2000, dawn of a new era. Reporting from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
In many ways, the heroes of this day are the Italians, the people whom the doomsayers said had done too little, too late to save themselves from the Y2K bug. And as usual, the Italians did it their own way. They saved a ton of money and came through just fine. They've been doing it for centuries. We'd like to share a tribute that my This Week colleague, Cokie Roberts, filed from Rome.
Angelo, Arno, the river, Antipasto, Armani, Giorgio Armani, Alps, artichokes, and then there's Botticelli, Bellini, Bernini, Bacci, and Bacci. It's hard to argue with Cafe Espresso, Cappuccino, Cupids, crucifixes, cardinals. Or take David, Dante, Donatello, Della Robbia, Del Sarto, Da Vinci, Dolce. Delicious. Etna. Ekberg in La Dolce Vita. F is fantastico. We have focaccia, formaggio, fagioli, fettuccine, Fellini. Florence. Frescoes. Fountains. What about Ghirlandaio, gondolas, Giotto, Giardino, Gucci? Hadrian's Villa, Hotel Hassler, or simply Italia, indubitably, indisputably incredible. Not convinced? How about Julius Caesar? The Coffee House de Boboli, Lippi, Loggia, Leaning Tower, and
Sophia Loren.
The marvelous Marcello Mastroianni, Madonna, the original, Milan. Then there's the Nativity, Naples, Neo-Realism. Organ, opera, leads to Pavarotti, leads to P. Brace yourselves, we've got Perugino, Pappardelle, Pellegrino, pizza. We've got Piazza, Pesto, Parmesan, the Pope. And let's not forget prosciutto, Prosecco, Ponte Vecchio. Quiet chapels. Then there's ricotta, risotto, Rossellini, Rossini, Raphael, Rome. The stupendous San Marco, Santa Croce, Savonarola, Swiss Guards in St. Peter's, Sicily. Turin, Titian, Tiramisu, also temples, tapestries, Tomba. Umbrella Pines, Umbria, Uffizi, the museum. You're listening to Vivaldi. Venice, Verona, Vangale, Vino. Everybody in Italy drinks vino. Versace. White truffles, wet cobblestones. Scusi, there's no X in Italian. How about another S? Sienna. And oh yes, yellow peppers, youth hostels, young lovers. Last but not least, Zuccari Brothers, Zuccari Palace, Zucchini, zany film directors.
I am so full of joy that my body is steering everything, every organ of my body is moving in a very bad way, and I cannot do.
Italy, we rest our case.
Cokie gets to go to Rome. Barbara gets to go to Paris. I stay in Washington, but that's not so bad. Think of it. Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, Roosevelt 1 and 2. Doesn't have the same ring, does it? Cokie will be back on This Week. Maybe not tomorrow. Have to give her a day off. And we'll be back after our local stations have their say. So please stay with us for a third hour of looking at the new millennium from ABC News.
It's the dawn of a new millennium, and only one thing is certain. Monday nights belong to ABC, with blockbuster network premieres and outstanding originals. Mary Tyler Moore and Valerie Harper, Mary and Rhoda, The Beach Boys, An American Family, Jennifer Love Hewitt, The Audrey Hepburn Story. And it all kicks off with the story behind this century's greatest athlete, Muhammad Ali.
I am the greatest.
The premiere of the Monday Night Big Picture Show, January 10th on ABC.
Do you think you have the power to change the world?
I can shape the future, one child at a time.
I know I can make a difference in those children's lives, and I know I have.
Who knows where my influence may stop?
I teach.
I teach.
I teach.
Yes, they're teachers, but to the kids they reach, they're heroes.
I think I have the power to change the world. The influence is always there.
Do you have the power to wake up young minds, to be someone's hero, to change someone's life? Reach for that power. Teach. If you want to make an impact on our future, call 1-800-45-TEACH. Want to change the world?
I teach. I teach.
I teach.
I teach. I teach.
Be a teacher. Be a hero.
Disaster strikes and you want to help. But what happens when the tragedy is being played out on a smaller stage out of sight of reporters and television cameras? How do you know you are needed? Hello, I'm Angela Lansbury for ChildReach. In many of the world's poorest countries, poverty devastates lives with no less intensity than a hurricane or a civil war, especially the lives of children. ChildReach, one of the world's largest and most experienced sponsorship organizations, creates a continuing connection between a sponsor and a needy child overseas. This leads not only to a caring relationship, but also to family and community-based self-help programs designed to bring clean water, education, health clinics, and most of all, hope to the sponsored child and his or her family. To find out more about ChildReach, please call 800-603-1600. I'd be so grateful.
One way to measure weather is by degrees, but you can also measure a weathercaster the same way.
Take News 10 Chief Meteorologist Alyssa Lynn. With a degree in physics and an advanced degree in atmospheric sciences, she has the knowledge to bring you a more advanced forecast and the advanced technology of Storm Tracker 10 Doppler radar to back her up. When you want weather that covers it now and covers it better, it's just a matter of degrees. Alyssa Lynns, weeknights on News 10.
I am AmeriCorps.
It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from in the Army National Guard. If you want to serve your country, if you can spend 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year of intense training to be ready when your community needs you, then call 1-800-GO-GUARD and become part of a team that will help you achieve everything you can.
What's it like to be 7 and hear your doctor say cancer? From the darkness comes something beautiful, a wish come true. What's it like to help? Just call us at Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Happy New Year from KXTV 10.
This ABC News special continues. The year 2000, dawn of a new era. Reporting from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
Welcome, or welcome back, as the case may be, to our first broadcast here at ABC News to begin this new millennium. A little bleary-eyed this morning? Well, it's all right, you're entitled. If you're just greeting the dawn of this new year, here's the headline. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Y2K is remarkably bug-free so far. No terrorism either. And all systems are go, go, go. We'll be turning again to our able team of Nightline correspondents for updates on how the world and our nation greeted the year 2000. In London, John Donvan. He's keeping an eye on our overseas bureau. And here in Washington, we have Chris Bury, Michelle McQueen, and Dave Marish. Dave, you're up first, and I understand you're talking about the addition to the world's population?
Yes, Sam. You know, we went into this weekend with a myriad of Y2K worries, most of them happily now safely behind us. But among the most worried institutions about Y2K were America's hospitals. And after all, a computer glitch could create a life or death situation. Happily, that did not happen. But the bill, according to the American Hospitals Association, for Y2K protection, $8 billion. But as more and more time zones rolled into the new millennium safely and soundly, America's hospitals could turn to a more traditional concern, the first baby of the new year, or in this case, the new century and the new millennium. In Indianapolis, Indiana, the Wallman family contributed both the alpha and omega of millennial birthing. Jacob beat the clock, drawing his first breath a minute before midnight, while 2 minutes later his sister Jordan copped the Indianapolis title as first 21st century kid. Father Tim Wallman admitted he had used vigor and spice to manage the timing of his wife's delivery.
We went to Don Pablo's Wednesday night for salsa, went to the mall walking today, and went riding all over the bumpy country roads, trying to make sure it happened.
It's a good thing the doctors performing Mrs. Wallman's cesarean did not go by America's official clock website, the one from the U.S. Naval Observatory, because when it rolled out of 1999, 12:01 a.m. was assigned to the year 19,100. It took the Navy's clock observers 2 hours to catch and correct the error. What went wrong, Sam? We don't know. The folks at the Naval Observatory ain't talking about this one, but it makes you wonder. Those missing Mars missions, could they have been flying on U.S. Naval Observatory time?
Now, what a slur, Dave. You're going to have to answer all the email from the U.S. Naval Observatory on that one. Thanks very much. In a few moments, we're going to go to the White House. President Clinton normally has a radio address on Saturday morning. He'll have it again this morning, but it will also be on television. And he has a special guest, and we'll tell you who she will be in just a moment. You know, there will be minor glitches, and we discovered one here. The Disney company has spent a lot of money, as have large companies, on trying to get ready for Y2K. But someone on our staff noticed that on December 20th of this year, in the job postings required by law, new jobs, we found a posting for the secretary, a secretary for the executive producer of our special events unit, Mark Burstein, who was the able producer along with Tom Yellen of that 25-hour extravaganza that Peter Jennings anchored. And at the bottom, however, you will see that it says that the deadline for applications, look down there at the bottom, it says 1/3/1900. Well, I wanted to, Mark was too busy to ask him if he'd had, 100 years to look over the applications if he made a selection. We corrected that in a few days, but those glitches will keep turning up. For instance, you may get some bills in the coming year from your gas company or electric company, which says, you have to pay by January 20th, 1900. Now, I have already consulted lawyers who say you cannot get away with not paying by saying, well, they gave me 100 years, it's all right. And on the other hand, the electric company cannot get away with charging you 100 years interest. So it sort of makes it fair. These glitches, as Stephanie Moore earlier, as Marcia Stepanek have told us, are going to turn up perhaps for months. But they, of course, are minor compared to the catastrophes that a lot of people thought might occur and didn't occur. There are still, however, in this country, precautions being taken. I can tell you, for instance, that the two major oil pipelines that service from Texas to New York and from service to Chicago are down. Or at least one was down for 8 hours after midnight. I guess it's back up now, should be. And the other is down for 20 hours as they look over the booster stations that boost the pressure in the line to make certain that they're still working so there are no problems. Amtrak trains, as we've already reported, stopped for a brief time at midnight last night to make certain the tracks were clear and the signals were working. And, of course, they gave everyone a whistle on the Amtrak train. It says, I rode the train into the new millennium. And I kind of observed that if the train hadn't started, you could always call a cab. I think it's time to go to the White House after that attempt at humor. President Clinton and his normal Saturday morning radio address. A television camera's been allowed to be in this morning, and he is joined by his wife, Hillary Rodham Clinton, as the two of them talk to the nation on this first day of the new year and this first day of the new millennium.
Morning and Happy New Year. Or we should say, Happy New Millennium. Last night, Hillary and I joined thousands of Americans in the National Mall to bid farewell to the remarkable century just passed and to welcome the new millennium. The feelings of goodwill and hope that overcame us all will be among our most treasured memories. And we're deeply grateful that the celebrations were both jubilant and peaceful, here and all around the world.
But our celebration didn't just begin at the stroke of midnight, nor will it end today. 2 years ago, the President and I launched the White House Millennium Project to inspire all Americans to reflect on where we have been as a nation, who we are, and what we want to be. A project to honor the past and imagine the future. I've traveled all across our country, encouraging citizens and communities to think of the gifts that America can give to the future, whether it's saving our historic treasures, such as the Declaration of Independence, or Thomas Edison's invention factory, or the Pueblos of the American Southwest, opening trails and planting millions of trees for future generations to enjoy, or teaching our school children to value their own families and America's immigrant past. The President and I invite you to join these and so many other efforts to extend our celebration far into the new year and the new century.
What is perhaps most remarkable about last night's celebration is the way it was shared all around the world. Millions of Americans and billions of others across the globe watched on television as midnight broke, first in Asia, then in Europe, then Africa, South America, finally here in North America. That people all over the planet could experience the same events at the same time would have been impossible for anyone to imagine 1,000 years ago, even 100. Yet the growing interconnectedness of the world today, thanks to a global economy and technologies like the internet, is more than just a mark of how far we've come. It's the key to understanding where we're going and what we must do in the new millennium. It's clear that our fate in America increasingly will be tied to the fate of other nations and other people around the world. We must have prosperous partners to trade with, secure democracies to share the burdens of peacekeeping, and mutual effort to combat challenges that know no borders, from terrorism to environmental destruction. To advance our interests and protect our values in this new, interconnected world, America clearly must remain engaged. We must help to shape events and not be shaped by them.
Yet it is not just by our exertions abroad, but by the example we set here at home that we can influence the world for the better. For in the new millennium, the world will be looking to America for leadership in meeting our great common challenges. If we in America can extend prosperity to people and places in this country that have not yet felt it, then perhaps the global economy can bring a better life to the 1.4 billion people who live on less than $1 a day. If we in America can provide all of our children with a world-class education, then perhaps it will be possible in the not-too-distant future for every child in the world to have a good education. And if we can build one America and make our diversity our greatest strength, then perhaps other nations will see the advantage of working to overcome their own ethnic and religious tensions.
We begin the 21st century well poised to be that guiding light. Seldom in our history, and never in my lifetime, has our nation enjoyed such a combination of widespread economic success, social solidarity, and national self-confidence, without an internal crisis or an overarching external threat. Never has the openness and dynamism of our society been more emulated by other countries. Never have our values of freedom, democracy, and opportunity been more ascendant in the world. Nearly 55 years ago, President Franklin Roosevelt said that we cannot live alone at peace. Our own well-being is dependent on the well-being of other nations far away, and therefore that we must be citizens of the world, members of the human community. I believe his words will prove even truer in the 21st century. With America fulfilling our ideals and responsibilities, we can make this new century a time of unprecedented peace, freedom, and prosperity for our people and for all the citizens of the world. Thank you, Happy New Year, and God bless America.
President and Mrs. Clinton speaking from the Oval Office, where the President normally delivers his Saturday morning radio address. Today on television, today joined by the First Lady with a message for this new year and this new millennium. And we'll be back in just a moment with more of our coverage of the first day of the third millennium, right after this message.
This ABC News special, The Year 2000, Dawn of a New Era, will return in a moment.
Sans soleil, la fleur périt et puis s'évanouit. Oh, quel...
Introducing Slim Fast Cappuccino Delight. One taste and you'll fall in love. Made with rich imported coffee, fat-free milk, cool, smooth. There's never been a more irresistible way to lose weight and feel great. New Slim Fast Cappuccino Delight. Taste it and fall in love.
This is the year, my friend, we get off the bunny trail. Oh, yeah? You're not going to be sick on the weekend, all right?